edition of New Jack Swing podcast. We Next week we are doing our top favorite female R&B acts, but Stevie and I today are doing a face off. This is I know Bobby Brown and Keith Sweat did a versus that we're doing something slightly different, and it'll be great to we'll talk through it just as we start off. But Stevie, how have you been?
I'm good. I've just finished work. I've got a week off work coming up. I needed a break. I also figured that we didn't want to leave the listeners longer than 2 weeks to do a New Jack live. So this is why we kind of come up with this concept, which I guess the first episode, Bobby versus Keith, it's a bit obvious, but it's comfort food for a Sunday evening, folks. You know what I mean? It's a bit of comfort food. It's a bit of fun. I've seen a few comments saying they've done it before. I know, but once we get into it, I think you'll enjoy it.
Yeah.
But before we get into it, there's a few new bits that I want to mention that have just come out. Big reissue of the weekend is Prince's new Power Generation album, Diamonds and Pearls, which there is a super, I think there's a 8 or 9 CD deluxe edition, which is very, very expensive CD, which has got 3 CDs full of unreleased demos on it. And there's some like New Jack Swing demos on it. And there's also his version of, do you remember the pop artist Martika? Don't know if you remember her, Nnamdi.
No.
He did 2 albums in the late 80s, early 90s, but he wrote some songs for her. He did a track called Martika's Kitchen, and it's his demo version of it on there, which is very New Jack. There's a long version of Diamonds and Pearls, which is just a great track. What else? This surprised me. A reissue of Salt and Pepper's album from 1993.
Is that the one with the En Vogue?
Yeah, to celebrate hip hop 50th anniversary, double CD. The CD 2's got a load of remixes on it, so it's worth picking up. Bit of nostalgia. 1993 Jeep beat hip hop. And if you're getting in the Christmas spirit, it's only a few weeks away now, a month away. We've got Mary J. Blige's anniversary reissue of her Christmas album, and Merry Christmas, with a few bonus tracks, tracks on there. So if you're out and about in store, pick it up. Yep. Oh, and I must mention this lady, Layla James. If you like Faith Evans' debut album, you'll probably like this album as well. There's only 9 tracks on it. Wow. It's a great album. It's got some of that mid-90s hip-hop soul flavour on it. Very, very strong. Really strong release this week. So there you go.
Okay.
Oh, and happy birthday, a belated happy birthday to Jackie McGee.
Yes, yeah, Jackie McGee, definitely. Check out her. Don't forget to check out the re-release of her debut album as well. But yes, guys, it's Brandy's also having a Christmas album coming out. Christmas with Brandy. It's that I guess she hasn't come out with much recently, so it'd be good to see what that is. And Stevie and I did.
Chris, what is that? A new show or an album?
No, it's an album. So it's an album of So Brandy, yeah. So I have reached out to her people to see if we can get a discussion going. But let's see how that goes. But also look out for an interview with Samuel. So last week, Stevie and I sat down with the former lead singer of the group Club Nouveau, and he had some stories about.
We won't give it all away.
Yeah, no, he had some stories. Give it all away,
but the story behind "So You Like What You See" it's an absolute gem.
Yeah,
it really is a gem. It'll surprise a lot of you.
Yeah, look forward to for that coming out. Okay, so just for those who are just joining, what we're doing today, I know people might have thought Bobby Brown and Keith Sweat were going to show up, but actually what we're doing is really trying to pit the 2 artists. I know they did a versus, but this is somewhat different. We're going to have 9 rounds, 9 songs, and we're going to be just seeing if Keith Sweat or Bobby's songs, if they had 9 songs, are better than the other. we need you guys to vote on this. But also the thing is, there's not going to be a maximum of 3 songs from one album. So I'm not going to be able to put down the whole "Don't Be Cruel" album and see here's all the big hits. I can only pick 3 songs from one particular album. And Bobby only had 4 albums, minus the remix stuff. Keith had a lot more albums, so it's going to be interesting to see who wins each round and stuff. So, and you're going to be so interested in some of the selections I picked for Bobby as well. But yeah. So if there's anything else, we can pretty much start now. Guys, sorry late because in the UK time our clocks went back. So when we initially put this out, we should have started an hour earlier, but our clocks and time difference and stuff. But anyway, that's out the way. So
close now. We're closer to the States. Only 4 hours.
Yes, but yeah, I
can't remember which one.
Yeah, but their clocks go back next week. So yeah. So well, Michael, it'd be interesting to see if Bobby Brown will win. But as I said, we can only pick icons from the "Don't Be Cruel" album.
Listen, it's Bobby Brown is the big favourite here.
but I can only
let's have this right. I was thinking, how could I possibly win this? Is it about songs strategically placed in certain orders? And I realised, I thought, you know what, I'm just going to pick my favourite Keith Sweat tracks, not just the big hitters, but just my personal faves, and if I lose, I can live with that because
but as I said, it's only 3 songs per album.
True.
So it is it's not easy. It's not, you just don't, and I can't include any of the New Edition stuff, so it's just strictly Bobby. So I can start off with round 1, and definitely I'm going to go on Our Own off the Ghostbusters soundtrack. That single sold over 1 million copies. It was released in '89. I mean, at the time when Bobby was in Ghostbusters, it was rumored that he was paid $1 million to appear for less than seconds in the movie, plus $1 million to do the track. I mean, he was big. I mean, so that was a massive stuff. And actually, it was, there was Babyface and L.A. Reid and Daryl Simmons at their best with the track. And I even remember the video, Bobby wearing his, the T-shirt with the little polka dots and stuff, and magic. So for round number 1, I'm just going to go with On Our Own. What are you going to match up with?
I love that track so much. I love it so much. I guess, what do you remember about that track? Obviously, the film, got to watch the film at the cinema and just waiting so patiently just to see like 30 seconds of Bobby Brown appear. And he appeared in this. What was the scene now? It's like they go down this hole, don't they, in the ground. It's on New York Street, and there's all this slime and everything, and he just kind of appears out of nowhere.
And he was the doorman or something that, right?
He was that as well.
He was the doorman.
It was a treat because obviously we'd had the Don't Be Cruel album, and I think before that, was it Every Little Step? Was that the single before it? It was all that summer. It was all Every Little Step, and then he drops On Our Own, and I was like, wow, this is just what a treat! What an absolute treat that track was. So I think that's a very strong start for you, Nnamdi.
So what was your first track?
I guess what I've done, as we're gonna go like in 3 sections.
Yeah.
I guess this first track I picked because of my memories of go to clubs from the mid-90s onwards. And I'd always hear it in the clubs. You still kind of hear it now in a club. I'm going back to 1996 from the self-titled Keith Sweat album, and I'm going with Twisted. The album mix, the remix. There was so many remixes of it. There was the remix at the bit of the Marvin Gaye Sexual Healing going on, but again, it's just a brilliant song that everybody remembers. You probably went to the club and danced to it. Wow. You probably bought the single with the remixes on. I kind of looked at Keith Sweat's albums as they progressed from late 80s into the 90s, and he gets stronger. There's a point where you think he can't touch Make It Last Forever, but we'll come to that in a bit. He does. I think he does, and he's got an album there that is possibly stronger track by track or overall listening than the Make It Last. But I think Twisted is just a very great track. It's a strong track, and it stood the test of time.
There's a poll out right now, so I've just put On Our Own versus Twisted. So if you can go into the chats and vote to see who wins round one. But go ahead, Stevie.
I was going to say good evening to Colin, one of our regulars.
Yeah, Colin's okay.
Good evening to Michael Walker.
Queen D.
Also, Miss Queen D, thanks for joining us. Very appreciated.
Yeah, and anyone pop in the chat. He was with Michael's biking shorts. I mean, Michael, Bobby, and out on our own video and stuff. He was.
I only picked one track from the 1996 album. The other singles that were on it were the Slave cover of Just a Touch. He did a cover of that. There's the other single, Nobody, which initially did make my top 9, and then I took it out again.
Wow.
That Nobody track, strong, really strong.
Yeah.
But overall, that 1996 album was a strong album. Funky Dope Lovin', I think that had Aaron Hall on it, didn't it? Funky Dope Lovin', brilliant track.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, right now with the charts, I mean, it seems as if the way the votes are, On Our Own seems to be winning at 63%, which I'm surprised, actually.
I'm not surprised.
I mean, Twisted was a big track, though. I'm surprised. Twisted was a big track. Yes, it was good flavor. Yeah, there was some mix of Twisted on the German CD. Maybe different. I didn't realize there was different, but Twisted was actually, okay. So right now it looks as if round one goes to Bobby, On Our Own. It might be a little bit different now in round two because I'm taking 3 songs from the Bobby album because remember that's the max I can do, and the first track I wanted to go with, and the Bobby album, I would say that the Bobby album came out 2 years too late. That's that was the big. It came out 2 years too late. Think about it. It came out 4 years after the Don't Be Cruel album. It should have come out in 1990. It should have come out when BBD and all these guys.
I think if it would have done though, the production would have been different.
It would have been a different, but think about this is because LA and Babyface on the Bobby album, that was their worst production. I mean, Humping Around was okay, but that wasn't their best production, and they were stuck in between trying to do New Jack and moving into look at what they did with Boyz II Men or TLC. Much better production. They weren't under the pressure of competing with Teddy, so I think their work on the Bobby album good enough. And
I don't know if you take if you take the backing vocals out of Humping Around, right, or if you just take all them big screeching backing vocals and you break it down to that mood bass, and it's a heavy track, quite a heavy track.
As I said, it was a good production, but this was them at their worst. It wasn't their best. I mean, LA and Babyface were masters. I think they just were under so much pressure to compete with Teddy that they were like, let's do Teddy, and they lost their strength. But so from that album, and as I said, the album should have come out in 1990 at the latest. I mean, it was a missed opportunity, and then he got married, and it just dropped a lot of things. But from that album, one of my favorite albums, starting off with That's the Way Love Goes, which unfortunately should have been a first single. Should have beat the first single, not Humping Around. That's the Way Love Goes, featuring Rex and Effect. Amazing track, Teddy at his best. Bobby was back to his good self. So that was the track I believe should have been the first single off the Bobby album. So that was round two. That's my Bobby Brown pick from the yes.
I remember, it was produced by Teddy. Then there was some remixes from Three Boys from Newark, which were pretty heavy remixes. They were good mixes. Has it stood the test of time? Is it a classic? That's debatable. It's debatable. It was it's a good track for its time. I think it was a solid track for its time as a swing beat record.
Yeah.
When you think of Bobby Brown, do people go for that track? Probably not. But it's a solid enough track. Is it as good pitted against the track I'm going to pick now from Keith Sweat?
Okay, let's see now.
Well, I'm going to go to his debut album, 1987.
Okay.
A duet with a young lady called Jackie McGee.
Okay.
Just a humble track that will probably live in the memory of every R&B lover for the last 30, 40 years and probably last another 30, 40 years. Just a humble song called Make It Last Forever. Just probably an all-time classic R&B soul record. Undefeated, undisputed, mesmerizing vocal song. Probably Jackie McGee steals the show on that track.
Yeah.
For an incredible vocal performance, but I don't know what else to say. It's just an incredible record. Still gives me goosebumps today. I'm not tired of hearing it. I can still listen to it and enjoy it. So yeah, that's my second choice.
Okay, so you've got okay, I'm just gonna put it out there. Bobby Brown, That's the Way Love Goes, which keeps her Make It Last Forever. The poll is out. I want to see what people think. A classic, yeah. As I said, I did love it. It was a track that felt different, felt really unique. But as I said, and that Make It Last Forever, it was my favorite album. But I just love that Bobby's track. But it'd be interesting to see what people think, because people might. It looks as if Keith is winning this one, about over 86%. So it looks like most people would agree that
might
was
be the
the
only
track.
round to win, to be quite honest. But
No. As I said, I know people might be thinking about things like Humping Around and stuff, but who knows? Because some of the tracks I've picked might surprise people, because like I said, I can only 2 songs from that. But right now, it looks as if Make It Last Forever clearly is trouncing That's the Way Love Goes. Okay. Track 3 for me is from the Bobby album. Yeah, is Two Can Play That Game. They had a movie too that I actually thought that I thought there was a movie with Vivica Fox and I can't remember who else was in there, called Two Can Play That Game. But I think they released a dance version of that here in the UK, which was in the top, which topped the charts.
It did.
It didn't get released in the UK, in the US, because I was in the US at that time. It didn't get released in the US at that time, but it was. I just love the whole band play. It's such a beautiful track, and Bobby actually has played that track very recently. Yeah, Colin. Yeah, I had Roni down, but it went to number 1. Yeah, so Colin was saying, yeah, Two Can Play That Game went to number 1 in the UK. Beautiful track. It wasn't getting released in the US, and I think at that point they just gave up on the Bobby album and just moved on. But it was a pity that album just didn't get the right tracks released.
Yeah, it was took to, it was a humble album, swing beat, Teddy produced album track there. Picked up in the UK, given several remixes on the dance side. I do know the dance people were remixed it, but I'm not going to say they are. But it did get some R&B remixes by 2B3, who's still out there making music. Shouts to 2B3 Productions. They were good mixes, actually. Yeah, it was a good song. It was a good song. Not sure about the rap, but it worked. It was a solid album track, I'd say. and maybe the Americans should have ran with that as a single.
Yeah,
I certainly enjoyed it. And it's a good solid one to pick. So what have I pitted that against? Well, I've gone to a soundtrack from 1991. You may remember it, Nnamdi. It was called New Jack City.
Okay.
I'm sure the listeners remember the film. There was a ballad on there called "There You Go, Telling Me No Again." I don't know why that ballad just works so well, but it's kind of a bit more of a begging record. But I just think so. It did stand out on the soundtrack, and they did actually include it on his Keep It Coming album as well. But I think they did release it as a single in the States, didn't they, as well? I think
Is it Telling Me Why? Or Tell Me No? What was the track?
There You Go, Telling Me No Again from the New Jack City.
Yeah. That whole album was an amazing track album. Definitely loved that entire album. And as a soundtrack, that was a solid song. And Keith definitely is definitely the balladeer when it comes to doing stuff like that. I wonder how people go. It's an okay song. Because it wasn't released, and I guess if you didn't have the soundtrack, you might not really remember it and stuff. You might not really remember it now. Okay.
Who would you say vocally out the two? Who would you say is the stronger vocally out the two?
No, Keith definitely vocally. But I would definitely should be bangers versus slow jam. Should be I think Keith definitely vocally has kept his stuff, his vocals together. Bobby had a different energy when he sang, and he's kept that up going. And he has his style, but he was all about the energy.
His style was basic. It was like he's got a very nasally sounding voice. He seems to. You get some singers back then who were accused of singing through the nose. You could. It's very larynxy. It's very nasally kind of vocal. So some people don't like it. Some people don't.
Yeah, Teddy said he wanted Keith to sing like that, and Keith hated it. So if you listen to these interviews, he said he wanted Keith to sing like that. Keith hated singing like that, because if you listen to Keith's first, he had an album before he signed with Warner that was more pop and stuff. But it gave him a distinct sound, and that's the one thing that you need in the industry. And Colin, you know better than me, is that you need a distinct voice that anytime you hear the record, people know it's you, and that's what Keith had. And no one can mistake and not hear Keith at any time and not say that's Keith Sweat. Today, all sound the same. But Bobby was known for his energy, even with New Edition. He sings Mr. Telephone Man almost like he's shouting. So that was Bobby's stuff. Anyway, so we've round 3, and I'm just looking at the votes. It seems as if it's 50-50 right now.
Wow.
So if you guys 8 votes. So if you guys keep voting to see, before we move on, to see who wins that one. That was between Two Can Play That Game versus by Keith Sweat.
Well, the balladeer, the people like Slow Jams will definitely vote for the Keith Sweat track. The more New Jack heads will go for your choice, I think.
Yeah, right now it's 50-50, so if you can put in the votes there. But while that's going, my number 4 is probably one of my top 5 songs. It has the backgrounds of Marcia McCollum and Mary Brown. They were part of the group Abstract, and it had also Bob Blackstreet singing "I Hope You Got a Near Second Chance." All right. If you listen to the interview I did with, he said he was working with with. He was part of the Flex, and he was at MCA, and they played the album for them to say, look, man, we need tracks like this. And he just said, wow, it was just the production with that is just, it's almost like Teddy was just on another planet when he produced that track. It 6.5 minutes long, so that's probably why they couldn't make it a single. But it's just an amazing track. The vocals, the harmony. I think Teddy's probably one of his best productions of a song. As I said, it was just 6.5 minutes. You could do them back in those days. I've been thinking if they could have released that as a single, what would they have chopped? And I couldn't think of what they could have chopped off to make that a single. But yeah, One More Night. The melody, it is just such an amazing track.
I think it's an epic track. Like you say, the length of it sways, it goes up and up, and then it goes down, and the way it ends, and production wise, you can't really fault it. Was it Pick Up the Pieces? I can't remember the sample. Average White Band.
He also had Arabian Rakim's I think for Eric for President. The whole thing. They just, Teddy was nominated for Producer of the Year Grammy off of that album. Just off of that album, he didn't, because he co-produced the Dangerous album, but just off that album, he was nominated for a Grammy because that violence production. I just think he just went to town with that album. I think he got the money from from MCA. They just gave him a lot of money. He just built a studio. He had Blackstreet. He had everyone. Bob was there. I mean, as I said, if you listen to my interview with Levi, he talks about the making of the Bobby album. How everyone was just doing the stuff. Even Tammy Lucas couldn't make any of the sessions because she was having issues with her vocals in that time, so he had to draft in other people. So that was just an epic album. So who have you gone off to? Who's on yours?
What have I pitted up against? That track you just saw, One More Night. I've gone back to Keith Sweat's debut album again from 1987, and I've gone for another killer production. Something Just Ain't Right. Your favorite all-time Keith Sweat tracks goes up against one of your favorite all-time Bobby Brown tracks. Let's see. Let's see how this one pans out.
That's
what I will say about the two tracks is you'll still hear Something Just Ain't Right. You'll hear that being played in clubs today. You'll hear it on the radio. Whereas you won't hear One More Night anywhere really, apart from you put it in playing it in your car or some. Never got to that level, did it? Unfortunately, it always stayed as an album track. Where Something Just Ain't Right did come out as a single, did get an extended version. Does sound amazing in a club. I've heard it being played loud in a club. I pitted a real gem there against
that's the
tough one.
The way Teddy started off the keyboard entry of that stuff, and oh goodness, do 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 do. Oh, this was just Teddy was. I tell people that when Teddy did the Keith Sweat, he wasn't thinking. He wasn't competing with anyone. He wasn't saying, he wasn't competing with anyone. He just did the stuff, and I think that's why the Make It Last Forever album and the Bobby album are his finest work, because he wasn't under pressure. He was just doing his stuff. I think subsequently, he got influenced by, I think, what Dre was doing and what Puffy was doing, and he just kind of shifts his sound. But those two albums, and even the Guy album as well.
I think I remember as well about that particular track is that people who were into 80s soul at the time, even late 80s soul, who didn't like New Jack Swing, didn't like the new sound coming through, they actually liked that Keith Sweat track. It still appealed to old school soul heads as well as it appealed to the new jackers that were coming through at the time. Whereas that Bobby Brown track didn't really have any appeal to like soul heads, really. They wouldn't have played that record. So, you know, Keith Sweat there kept that's my argument for this track anyway. On the poll,
Yeah,
whoever's watching this,
yeah. I mean, please remember to vote on YouTube. The poll is up right now. It's next. You know, it's hard for me to, because I love both tracks. I love both tracks. So that poll is still going now. For my number 5, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So for my number 5, I'm going to take a song from an album that at the time I just dismissed, and the reason was because there was no Teddy, there was no LA Babyface, there was no Jimmy and Terry, and I just dismissed the album. And that was Bobby's Forever album, which came out in '97. Unfortunately, Bobby dropped out of the Home Again tour, and he went in to do this album. And I've recently just listened to it again, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is an amazing album. He had Tim and Bob doing amazing ballads on the album, and he had DOA. And I challenge anyone who's watching is to just search the Bobby Forever album, and just it's about 9 or 8 songs, and it's just a masterpiece. And you know, the reviews were bad about it because people were probably judging Bobby about where he was and didn't look at the music. So the first track I'm going to come off on the album, written, produced by Tim and Bob, called Forever. It is such a, you know, it's as close as Roni as you can, but it is, and vocally, Bobby was actually on point with the album. I don't know what, as I said, we had the feeling inside, and you know, that was all Bobby crazy. But if you listen to the album and check out the track Forever, which is the title track, written and produced by Tim and Bob, and if you guys may say, who's Tim and Bob? They did 112's debut album. They did Bobby Valentino. They did a whole stuff of the Boys to Men. They've done everything, but the Forever track. Just search Bobby Brown Forever single, and tell me if what your thoughts are. Stevie, did you listen to the album?
It's a long time since I've listened to that album, but what I do remember, and I've kind of mentioned this on another podcast before, it came out in, it was 97, wasn't it? Was it 97?
Yeah, 97.
I just remember that year as like thinking something's changed about R&B. I remember all the years leading up to it were just incredible for releases, and then gets to 97. There's a lot of strong, don't get me wrong, a lot of strong releases. Neo Soul sort of was kicking in by 97 with Badu. So when Bobby Brown's I think we said it on another, when that album dropped, it was like, oh, there's a new Bobby Brown. It just, it didn't feel exciting, but it was still like, oh, because I was, you know, a huge fan of Bobby Brown. It's like, I'm still buying it, but a lot of people just didn't bother, you know. And like you say, they did miss out on you know, there is some gems on that album. There is some real gems on it.
As I said, yeah.
You know, that have been, it's a sadly overlooked album. I think there's only the lead off single that got any attention at the time. It
was just a feeling inside.
Yeah.
And it was that, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't the best track on the album. He had some really good songs, but the Tim and Bob stuff, and even the DOA, because I've interviewed both of them, but as I said, just search the Bobby album Forever, and I guarantee you'll be like, wow, how did we miss this? Stevie, what about yours for round 7?
Is this the bit where I take the lead in the pot in this versus challenge? I don't know, but I'm going to go with 1990.
Yeah, after this one,
1990s. I'll Give All My Love to You album, his second album, which I really like that album. I can play it from start to finish.
Oh, which one? I'll give you all my love.
But the track I went for was the big swing beat track, Make You Sweat. Again, big pub record. You know, I used to see the video on rotation at the time. I like the extended mix. I like the Norman Cook 12-inch remix. I like the beat. Make You Sweat. Just a brilliant, a really solid New Jack track. Has it stood the test of time? That's debatable. I'm not sure it has, but it's very of its time. I'm sure that all the New Jackers won't complain about that turning up in this vote off. Is it more remembered than that Bobby Brown track you just mentioned? Well, yeah, because it would actually come out as a single. There's a video to it. There's numerous remixes to it. Elektra promoted that record. But it's a very of its time New Jack record. It's a good one, solid one.
So a little thing about that. So Timmy Gatlin wrote and produced the track, and he and I'm laughing because when when I interviewed him the first time, and he mentioned the fact that Teddy had moved on with Gene and Keith had only ballads on his album. And actually, if you do listen to the album, it's mainly ballads. So he needed a fast song. He restarted Timmy because he couldn't afford Teddy, and Gene was charging triple. And Timmy said that Keith begged him to write and produce the track. I had good word that Keith wasn't really happy about hearing that. And I was supposed to interview Keith Sweat the same night I was interviewing Don Robinson. And it was all set up. So I was going to finish interviewing Don Robinson at 2 a.m. And then Keith Sweat was supposed to be on next. But the things just crossed and just didn't happen. And so it's been so. But he did watch the interview, and he did, so one of my friends contacted me and said, look, Keith wants to come on, but he didn't get it. It could have been a Guy track. If we listen to Make You Sweat and think about how the Guy album was, that was definitely in that vein. But I was at this point that Keith didn't really have minutes. And so that was a good one. That was a good one.
Alexi, while you put your vote out, who else who's joined us this evening? We've got Sheila, good evening. We've got Queen D. We've got D Grant. Who else? Diamond Onyx, good evening. So quite a few viewers out there tonight.
Yeah, we definitely welcome you guys. And it seems as if, in that poll, Keith was one. But Stevie, who's your number 6?
Hold on a minute. Isn't it your choice next?
So we said we'll swap it halfway through.
Okay. This is dear. Right, I'm going back to the debut again. The debut album from 1987. This is a real deep one. How Deep Is Your Love as a ballad? Just that real slow.
How deep is your love? Yeah.
Then it's just a long ballad, but it hit me there. Just really hit me, that record. Really strong ballad from his debut album.
Yeah, I mean, loved it, and Teddy on the Teddy definitely on the with the vocoders stuff. How Deep Is Your Love? Yeah, I loved that album. It's my favorite album.
Real favorite of mine, that record.
Yes, but I wonder how if it is going to be as good as from his Don't Be Cruel album. When you think about that album, I think it's L.A. Reid does not get the credit he gets because that Don't Be Cruel. So if you think about all the drum programming on the Karen White and the Rosa, the Whispers and all this, the Mac band, that's L.A. Reid. He was a drummer with the Dell. And then when he did the programming, and this is stuff that Daryl Simmons said, that L.A. was just on fire when it's drum programming. And so, although with this track, Roni, I think that's the track that you think about when you think about Can We Talk, and when you think about Come and Talk to Me. I think all of those tracks go back to Roni, and it was just such a different type of poetic track that he had, and especially the little rap he had in the middle and stuff. King Bobby was just on another level with that, but I think Roni is a song that does stand the test of time. So I don't know. So I'm just looking at the poll, and it looks as if Make You Sweat won that round, but I want to see how Deep Is Your Love compares to Roni. I mean, what are your thoughts about that?
I think Roni was it was a great single. You know, it had crossover appeal. It's a very bubblegum type pop ballad, you know, I've got great memories of it. You know, it's such a big sing along track, and it, you know, it still is today. You know, it stood the test of time. It's what you're looking for, really. Mine is more of a really deep, hard hitting R&B soul ballad, whereas yours is more of, like you say, it's the crosser, it's the appeal of it. It's all about people's individual memories of tracks, really. What your memories are, the sentimental value of a particular track to you.
Yeah.
You know, so that's what I know what you're voting on it. I understand. So it's a real pick 'em type round, this, I think.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, it's definitely always going to be.
One.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, yeah, as I said, I love the How Deep Is Your Love, but I think Roni just became such a massive brick. I mean, the whole Don't Be Cruel album was such a massive album.
There's no doubt that track is, you know, it's more well known. It's a far more well known track than How Deep Is Your Love. But if you're a real soul head, and I'm really digging in here just for more, if you're a real soul R&B, you're gonna go for that deeper track.
Yeah. Okay. What makes your number 7? Round 7.
Round 7. What are we on? Right. So this is like the last 3, isn't it? And there is a theme. Yeah. There is a theme to these last 3 tracks because they all kind of featured a group or some. Yeah, they all featured a group each track, either on backing vocals or a bit of co-vocals or whatever. But going to 1991's Keep It Coming album, I picked the title cut, Keep It Coming with Joe Public. Very fun, upbeat, New Jack Swing track. Keep it coming.
So they would. I didn't realize Joe Public.
Yeah, they were on backing vocals. I think produced.
Wow.
In part by them as well. Just, you know, I've just got great. Again, it's just my memory. It's what I've got good memories of that record of buying the 12-inch single, the CD single with all the remixes of. You know, it's got a very memorable chorus that you can sing along to. You can still play it now. It still sounds good now. Did it blow up? It didn't completely blow up, but it was, you know, it was a good big single at the time, I think, again, around that year. So the album, it was his 3rd album, maybe not as strong as the previous 2, but you could play that whole album from start to finish, I do remember. Again, it was split between up-tempos and ballads. It was a solid album, a real solid album, I thought, at the time, you know.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, definitely, it was a good track, but I think that his strengths became his ballads. Mm-hmm. I think his strengths became his ballads, but for myself, I think if I thought about a more of an up-tempo track, and I was giving credit to L.A. Reid for his programming, "Don't Be Cruel" as the single, that track was just it just felt. You know, I think, you know, it was Bobby coming into his own. That's you know, the rap, and you know, the rumor I had was the rumor that we had back in the day was it was meant for Karen White, but because of the rap, they gave it to Bobby. Daryl Simmons and Karen White denied it, but it was probably I think it's actually my favorite track on the Don't Be Cruel album. That track. I preferred to a lot of other tracks, but I think that was my favorite track. It's just the whole upbeat and Bobby just felt you could see in the video he just was feeling that track and stuff. And as I said, L.A. Reid on the programming for that.
Oh, it's a classic. There's no doubting about that selection there. Again, my memories of that track. I go to school with 3 other young guys at the time, and I'd bought the 12-inch of Don't Be Cruel, and I'm saying, guys, you need to listen to this. This guy called Bobby Brown, and he know who it was. I was like, you've just got to hear this record. And I think one of them heard it and actually went out and bought it. I remember my late mother, my beloved mother, she loved that record as well. It's it's a great record. It stood the test of time. The production is unbelievable on that record.
Yeah. So I know Clean Music Lovers was talking about the comparisons, and I think one of the things that we're starting. This was our first episode, so we've got other face-offs, other groups and stuff, and I think the next time what we'll look to do is actually try and put it in categories. So slow songs versus slow songs, up tempo versus up tempo.
Well, the beauty of this, we don't know what we picked. It is a bit of a mishmash.
Yeah. And
it'll look like that on the vote, but you don't know what's coming next, and that's what kind of makes this interesting, I think.
Yeah. So who comes in? So round 8, we've got 2 number round 8. Well, who's on your?
Well, hold on a minute. How are we doing in this vote now? Who's in the lead?
So right now, let me see.
Stats showing at the moment from round 1 to round
1, 2, 3, 4. So right now, it's Bobby has won 4 rounds and Keith has won 3.
Ah, interesting. So I'm in the mix. I'm in there. I'm in with a puncher's chance here.
Yeah.
So next up,
we've got the last 2.
Got 2 left. Well, it's interesting. From his 1994 album.
He had more albums.
It's just, you know what? This is a strong album. This. I looked at the track listing. I thought this is where Keith came back with a really, really strong album. If you haven't listened to it for a long, check it out again. It's got a lot of strong tracks on it. But he teamed up with Cut Close for the title cut of Get Up On It. Did a good, solid remix. Again. It's just a really strong R&B record for 1994 that did get club play, did get radio play. Just a really solid record, I think.
Yeah, it's introducing Cut Close, and I know that there are issues with about the fact that he just he didn't he's not engaging with them when it comes to going on tour and stuff. But great way to introduce a group. Most people when just say let's feature you on a single that was big and stuff like that. So that was a big track, and he actually, to be fair to Keith, he started getting better, because by this time, that was his 3rd or 4th album.
Yeah, it was his 4th album.
This is his 4th album. I mean, what year was that?
94.
94. So what was Bobby? Bobby was in between doing the. He had just finished the Bobby album. He didn't do anything until 97 when he did the.
He was gone.
Forever
By
album.
94, Bobby was gone, really, wasn't he?
Yeah, so you could see how Keith was just churning out music and stuff like that. I'm putting it up against a track that actually was probably one of Bobby's biggest, but probably wasn't my. I don't know why this track made so, and why it was so big, and why it became such a big crossover track. I have no idea. My Prerogative, even though it's Teddy's production, but it felt more rocky. The da-na-na-na-na, and probably that's what crossed it over. But hearing I could hear Aaron in the background. You can hear Big Bob singing in the background. It was written by Aaron. Bobby did some writing on it, but written mainly by Aaron. Aaron didn't get the main credit for that. But it took Bobby's career to another level, and it was almost as if it was very strange for that time for somebody to say, "Look, man, stop writing all this stuff about me." Now think about it. In around that time, there wasn't much worth saying about Bobby compared to 94, 93. But it was it surprised me how big that track was. But it's still one of Bobby's biggest track. He still plays right now.
It probably is his biggest track. I felt the same when I first heard it. I just wasn't sure it was only a kind of maybe a year and a half later that I realised this is an amazing, you know, it's what a track. It sounded just so different to everything else at that time when it came out. But it is one of his signature tracks. It's been covered several times. Has it stood the test of time? Well, I suppose it has. You know, it's a record that has stood the test of time. Pitted against what I've just picked, it depends what you like. Do you want a big, you know, classic pop New Jack record, or do you want a solid R&B get up on it record? I think I know what people are going to pick.
Yeah, I mean, right now it's yeah, right now most people are picking my program. You know, I mean, as I said, this is something that there's. I know a number of people are questioning about the selections and stuff. And actually, as I said, I'm sure by the time we come back next time with a new set of groups, we'll work it out where it just feels a little bit more containing and stuff. But I like Get On It, and actually, it would be interesting to see if we thought about '94. What could you bring? I'm sorry, '94. What could Bobby Brown produce that could be equivalent to what Keith did in that time? Because Keith was always going platinum or double platinum with his releases, so that just shows you how much of how consistent he was. And so you've got to give it up to Keith.
The only track he released in the mid-90s was on that soundtrack one. Was it Slick Partner or something?
It was on the he did a track on the Panther soundtrack.
Yeah, Slick Partner, was it, or was that the yeah?
I think it was.
Was it on that?
He did something on the Panther, yeah. But yeah, I can't even remember it. Okay, so what is your so right now it looks as if Prerogative is won that round. So the last one. I haven't
even put up "I Want Her." You know what? The reason for that, I'm just tired of hearing it. I'm just so tired of hearing that record.
Are you serious?
Seriously, I'm just Got Paid is another one. I'm tired of hearing it.
Yeah.
If I'm really honest, I just think have they stood the test of time? Production wise, it's sounding very dated now, to be quite honest. You know, but there's no. I mean, I do remember at the time when I Want Her came out, people they weren't sure about that record. It is a classic record, but I've just heard it too many times, and that's why it was in my reserve list. I've got a reserve list of 9 records, and then I've got my 9 favorite records. So my last choice, and I'm probably unsure whether even a lot of you listening to that have probably even heard this record, but it was on 1998 Still in the Game album. There was a group signed to Universal at the time called Old School that actually featured on this record. And it was a track called Show You What Love Is. Just a brilliant R&B record. Solid R&B album track.
Was that
a single? Wasn't a single. It's just a solid track from that album. It's one of my favourite Keith Sweat records.
My goodness, you kind of.
I thought I'll dig deep and surprise a few people, like you did on Bobby's Forever album, because no one's probably heard that Forever track that you're talking about.
Yeah, as I said,
so, we've got one each there. We've got one each.
And as I said, I do want people. We'll do a feature on the Forever album because I just want people to remember that you'd be surprised how you listen to it. Bobby actually did, in some ways, keep up. But that was a '90s album. That was '90s production. It felt. Actually, I'm listening to the Forever album, and I actually thought it's sacrilegious to say, but it felt more contemporary than the Bobby album. So I could listen to that now and still think much more of it than the Bobby album. So Yeah, I mean, my final track, because as I said, so those who are joining in, we couldn't pick more than 3 songs from an album, so I couldn't go and put every little step.
Wouldn't have been fair. I might as well
Yeah,
have called it time now. You know.
yeah. If I couldn't pick up, I couldn't do every little step or more than 3 songs on it. So that was one of the catalysts and stuff. But for me, I'm going back to the King of Stage album and Girlfriend, which actually was, wasn't too bad, and I don't know if what people that was. That was
This
his. There
is
was
the David Foster side of you coming out. Yeah, that one in there. I want a girlfriend.
Yeah, but it was a good track.
I think it's a shocker here, Nnamdi. I'll be honest. I think you're lucky. You're lucky. I picked a track that nobody knows. Well, that track's a shocker, mate. It's an absolute.
But who? I mean, it's either I did that or go back to the Forever album and do a track that most people wouldn't have listened to.
Even Bobby said at the time, "But why were It's like, why am I putting this record out? why am I doing this?"
Yeah, at the time it wasn't a bad track though. It wasn't a bad track for that. I mean, it didn't do the numbers and stuff, but it wasn't a bad track. Yeah, I mean, as I said, it was.
If we could play both tracks now, if we could actually play, I know we can't do it because of YouTube rules, but
yeah,
I'm sure I'd get the nod here. This could win me the tie. You see, this could win me the tie. This one
right now. Okay, no, yeah, right now 5 votes. It's Girlfriend is winning, so we'll leave this until the end. But Connor says he liked the reggae version of Girlfriend.
I do. I've heard that reggae version. It's better. I'd agree. There is a reggae version. It's like a lover's reggae, and it's good actually. It's very good. I can't remember who it was by. I've got it somewhere.
Okay, yeah, we'll keep that going and stuff. But if there are songs that we'll see who wins that one. But while the poll is still going, if there were, let me see, if there's
Glenn Brown knows what I'm talking about. He knows what I'm talking
Get Me featuring Snoop. What Goes Around, these items, Show Me Love. I mean, there was some, yeah, still in the game. Actually, I prefer that stuff with Snoop.
Well, it's like Keith is actually, he's making a statement there. He's saying that I'm still around, I'm still here, I'm still Keith Sweat, I'm still in the game, and he was.
What about the track he did with Left Eye?
Oh, again, going back to that '94 album, which I think, again, it's a solid. Let me get the track list up for that '94 album.
He had
Get Up On It album.
Yeah. He had the track.
How Do You Like It?
How Do You Like It? When? Yeah, that was.
How Do You Like It? You got the track with Roger on. Put Your Loving Through the.
Oh
Text.
Record.
It Gets Better. Oh, it's a good album.
Yeah, it was a good album. But as I said, we could only pick 3 tracks from that. If there were, which other songs? I know you say you didn't like Make It Last Forever, but if you could pick some songs from that, do you want
to hear my reserve list of 9?
Yes.
Didn't make it. I picked Let Me Love You from 1991, which was like a funky swing track. Okay. Love that track. From the 2000 album, Didn't See Me Coming, I picked Real Man. Brilliant. Oh, that is a proper R&B. It's a female. I can't remember who the female vocal was on that, but it did get released as a single. Then I went for the remix of I Put You On featuring Debrat from 1999, produced by Darkchild from the Streak soundtrack. Then I've got I Want Her. That was on my reserve list. Then there was the Put Your Loving Through the Test with Roger.
Yeah.
It was How Do You Like It? That's on the reserve list. Then from the I'll Give My Love to You album, there was Just One of Them Things with Gerald Levert from 1990. There was Merry Go Round, and ended it with Nobody from 96. Again, we cut close. All them tracks were, again, very difficult to pick. Very difficult because Keith had a lot of solid tracks. Did a lot of solid album tracks, Keith Sweat.
as I said, unfortunately for Bobby, I mean, he had the remix. I could have cheated and did the remix in the key of B, which was, and just get something in common for that. Or I could have had the Don't You Know It and got the and added some of those remixes. But he realized that Bobby didn't on his own didn't have as many tracks because he, as I said, he came out King of Stage, Don't Be Cruel, the Bobby album, and Forever, and Keith came out with twice as many albums. But for me, as I said, I would have gone back to the Forever album. There's a track that I really wanted. I would have put Feeling Inside, which was a nice funky track. But there's a track by Tim and Bob called My Place. Please listen to that.
Great track.
Amazing track. Another track by Tim and Bob called Being Around the World. Being Around the World. It's if you think Tim, I'm like, my goodness, such a. And then there was a track that I really wanted to put in, which was a nod to Teddy called "Give It Up," which had the little vocoder inside there. As I said, guys, please listen. Search the Bobby out, the Forever album. You'd be surprised. Like, wow, how did we sleep on this? It didn't even go gold. But I'll tell you guys, if you do listen to that album, and just give me your thoughts around it, and I'll put it up there. She's My Lady.
Yeah,
which one was that?
That's a good track. That She's My Lady. Very good track.
Okay, yeah. It's as I said, he had some stuff, but up against Keith had the catalog.
Yeah,
and we're removing the whole New Edition stuff because if Bobby goes on tour now, he sings Telephone Man. One track I wish I could put there, which is probably my favorite New Edition track, was You Don't Have to Worry, because Bobby sang lead on that. Slim from 112 did the backing vocals. That was produced by Puffy with Missy and in it. That was Bobby backing himself. But yeah, as I said. So this was the first one. So I mean, we were debating a number of groups to pair up, and we started off with Bobby and Keith. But as I said, we had a number of different groups that we.
Initially, we was going to go with Bobby versus Usher.
Yes, it was going to be Bobby versus Usher.
But I kind of wanted it to keep the podcast more New Jack, even though I did leave out. It's funny because I've won 3 rounds tonight, even though I did leave out Keith Sweat's biggest New Jack record. The irony. He still holds his own even without that track being in the top 9.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, it's let me see. Around 9 was Girlfriend and
I think you put possibly one of Bobby's worst tracks in the top 9.
But you know what it is? Most of it, but common things Usher would have won, and it'd be interesting to see. I mean, yeah, it'd be interesting to see, Usher versus Mary J. Yeah. So we as I said, when we return with this, we will start looking at making it a lot more tighter. Artists whose albums were around the same year, so there'll be more of a comparison to Boyz II Men versus Jodeci. Even though Boyz II Men may have a more successful album, I don't think they have the cultural pull as Jodeci has. So I think Jodeci would have just won every round. So we'll try and find some balance.
They're a more well-known group than Jodeci, crossover-wise.
Yeah, but who would Boyz II Men compete with? Would they go after New Edition?
I still think you can. You can pit Boyz II Men against Jodeci. I think you can.
They won't win. They would lose every round.
You think so?
Unless they would lose every round. If I had 3 albums from, I mean, they won't be able to win on Forever My Lady if you had 3 songs from that. The Diary of a Madman, if you get 3 songs from that, they won't be able to compete with any of that. Maybe with the Show and the After Party, you may get them being a little bit more competitive, but they would lose 6 or 7 to 7-2 at most. It's just Jodeci versus Mary would be, it'd be hard to call. it'll be too hard to call if you had Jodeci versus Mary, because people love them equally. Because you have to think, a lot of these things are very sentimental, because we Mary means so much and Jodeci means so much. Boys to Men, it's if it wasn't for the Troubles, R. Kelly would have been someone that you could say, okay, R. Kelly versus Mary or Jodeci.
Who do you put Boys to Men up
because of all
against then? Shy, something like Shy, or
well, they'll beat Shy. I think yeah, New Kids on the Block. No, yeah, I think if you put Boys to Men up against maybe Black Street, people, it will be, they may start winning. Before I Let You Go versus End of the Road, it'll be like, okay, we're not sure. Don't Leave Me versus I Make Love to You. You start to
pull that question up from Colin Mills, that NKOTB. Pull that up, Nnamdi. I'll tell you what I remember about that album. I remember buying it. I bought the double vinyl first. I remember leaving the shop feeling embarrassed. I thought, I've just bought a New Kids on the Block album. That's how I felt at that age, I thought. But obviously the only reason I bought it was because it had production from Teddy on it. And I did like the first single, Dirty Dog. But that album now is a gem. It's a forgotten, underrated gem. There's some great tracks on that. Have you heard that New Kids on the Block album, Nnamdi?
Back in the day, not recently, so I can't remember any of the
send
tracks.
you a copy. You need to hear that album. There's really good Teddy tracks on that, but some really solid tracks on that album. And I don't feel embarrassed anymore. I kind of cherish that album now, but at the time I did feel a bit embarrassed about buying a New Kids on the Block album.
Yeah, but we think about it. They started the trend, and then we've got.
I remember the record bag. I thought the record bag was red. I thought, great, covers the album. No one's going to see that I've just bought this New Kids on the Block album.
Oh goodness! How was the album though?
Again, it was in 1993, I think it was. Yeah, 93. Okay. It's a really good album, that, surprisingly.
Oh. Okay. No, I never listened to it in its full. I mean, at 93, so he would have just left. He would have finished the Blackstreet album.
The production. It sounds very Blackstreet on it. You'll like it.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a track called Girls on it, it just sounds like a Blackstreet track to me. And then there's Never Let You Go, which is like a mid-tempo. It's like a mid-tempo R&B ballad, but that sounds like something off the Bobby album, production-wise.
Oh.
What I'm saying, you'll like this album.
Okay.
You can tell it was all done at the same time as the Blackstreet and the Bobby album.
Okay. So okay. I mean, so guys, yeah, this was the face off. We'll iron out the kinks for next time. Next week, Sheldon returns, and we are going.
Shout out to Sheldon.
Yeah, shout out to Sheldon. We're going for. We're going to be looking at our top 10 favorite female R&B groups. So that should be something really interesting to look at as well. As I mentioned, Brandy has a Christmas album out, coming out in a couple of weeks. Trying to see if we can get her on this show. Hey, aim high, you just never know. Stevie, you mentioned a few people whose albums, Leela James and the reissue of Princess. The reissue of Princess Diamonds and Pearls. Yeah, Faith Evans versus Toni Braxton. The problem is, it's
never even thought about that.
Yeah, that definitely would be something. Yes,
very good suggestion, Joseph.
Yes, especially as I said, the trick is that we can't go more than 3 songs on an album, because if you think about Tony's debut album,
Faith versus Mary again.
No,
2 choices.
I think Mary would wipe the floor with Faith. You have to understand, Colin. This is an emotional battle. So it's like they're just people you just don't vote against. That's as much as because I think Mary was a voice voice of a generation of hurt and
Who could you
pain.
put? Which female vocalist could you put Mary J. Blige up against from all eras? If it was all eras,
Whitney,
what about Aretha?
because that was
What about Aretha?
no, well, no, because I'd say because you know, we know some of Aretha's classic songs, but it just seems like she's away from us. I think if you look at Whitney, Whitney also has that emotional pull.
Well, she might do now. She didn't at the time. People weren't. Whitney was too pop at the time, really, weren't they?
Yeah, but I think people
now it's all changed.
Yes. So I think if you're thinking about Mary, that Mary would go would be maybe female wise, maybe Whitney, because then people would think twice when voting. Anita Baker is very much a Sade kind of combination. Yeah, I mean, I know Faith did a lot. Faith will tell. I mean, you interviewed Mary, Faith. She would tell you that Mary's Mary's on another level. You can't you're trying to compare the two, and she knows that she won't win that battle. It's we think about these things and emotional. I've put up a poll tonight about. I said, who's your favorite songs? I put Roni by Bobby Brown, Weak by SWV, Can You Talk by Tevin Campbell, Come and Talk to Me by Jodeci, and I put New Edition's Can You Stand the Rain. That one, hands down, Can You Stand the Rain, beating all those tracks because it's New Edition. That's there's some songs that just don't win. Beyonce doesn't have, people don't like. There's the audience doesn't. Destiny's Child and Beyonce did. She won't win any track against anybody, against Mary, against Aaliyah. I think Beyonce may win against somebody. I don't even know who, but yeah, it'll be hard for Beyonce to pull any ranks among the community. I don't know. There doesn't seem too many people that like Beyonce.
Are you still maintaining that Bobby's your all-time favorite album then?
The Bobby album? No, Make It Last Forever.
So I thought, if I gave you a choice, you were going on a desert island for a month and you could only pick
one album? Yeah, it'd be the Make It Last Forever.
What, against the Bobby album?
Yeah, against
the Bobby album at home.
If I had to pick between the two, yeah.
Wow, that's interesting.
Because Teddy did 7 out of the 8 tracks. He did some keys on Don't Stop Your Love, but he did 7 tracks of the Bobby album. But I think there were too many tracks in the Bobby album. I'll Be Your Friend. There were some other tracks that the Babyface and I would have removed. If I could trim down the Bobby album, just have the Teddy tracks, then yeah. But I think the Make It Last Forever, I just think it was just raw Teddy Riley. I would take that album. Or then I would think about the Basic Black.
But if it was reversed, what would be your top 3 tracks from that Keith Sweat album in the 9? Then would you put?
Something Just Ain't Right. Love that track. Make It Last Forever and Right in the Wrong Way.
This is it again. I Want Her gets left out. This is what I'm saying. That's how strong that album was.
No, I think I Want Her it's a nice track, but it's. But as I said,
too much. That's basically it.
Yeah, we've heard it. That's why I don't like. I have to be careful.
I'll tell you another record that I've heard too much is Next, Too Close.
Okay.
And Wifey, Next Wifey, because I just used to hear them every single week in a club. That I'm sick to of hearing them now.
No, I'm fine with Wifey. As my wife's is a ringtone for my wife. So when it rings, I know she's calling. So I'm fine with the track. But I think that's the way I mentioned about My Prerogative. It's a nice track, but I prefer Don't Be Cruel. And
what? We should do a top 10 6 that you a list of records that you're sick to death of hearing that you don't give a top 10 of that.
You have to be mindful of that, because you may have somebody listening in and saying, "Hey, okay, what are you talking about? My pride and joy." But yeah, as I said, I think they were overplayed with Just Got Paid, and great songs, But I think they got rinsed a lot. So if you think about, I'm surprised that people I like from Guy. Um, More so than I think most people, that's their favorite album, favorite track. I like. I probably think about some of the slow jams like "Piece of My Love" and "Goodbye Love." Tracks to me that just did still stand the test of time. But it's just preference. Um, but yeah, no, make it. If I had those three albums, if I had to pick, it would be "Make It Last Forever." Also that there is a 40th anniversary of the Thriller album, a new documentary that's
Really?
coming out. Yes. So George Nelson, I think he directed it. George Nelson's he's a writer and is a journalist, but he's produced this 40th anniversary. So they said there was two times that music had two eras, before Thriller and after Thriller. And so it's about 40 years since the release of Thriller and how it changed the industry. So it's in America, it's going to be shown on Showtime. Yes, it's December 2nd. I think we're going to get it on some of the, I think it's going to be on Paramount Plus or so, but it looks like it's going to be a real good thing. Just, I think we underestimate the impact of what Thriller did, even though it's sort of 100 million and stuff. But I think it just changed the music industry, the videos, the how you just communicated music, not just just the sounds, but also visually.
I don't think the Gen Z generation quite understand the impact of Thriller. I'm not even sure my daughter's generation, who are like mid-20s now, who listen to Drake, I'm not sure they quite get it either. You had to be there at the time. We lived through it. We seen how massive that Thriller album was.
Yeah,
it was everybody.
Everyone had a tape of it. Oh, yeah, we had a tape.
Had a copy of it, the video, everything. Run out to get the VHS, was frightened to death of the video.
Oh, yeah, the Thriller video.
You bought when you got a Walkman for your first time, the first cassette you probably got with it was probably Thriller,
Yeah. I mean, there was no there was no blueprint for what Michael did. And then I think what the dad did was he didn't let Michael go on tour for the Thriller album. He had to go with the brothers. He had to do an album with his brothers. So in a sense, it kept the family business going, and it meant that we didn't get a big Michael Jackson tour until Bad. But I think that was a good move and stuff. But it'd be interesting to see. My all-time favorite song is off the Thriller album, called "The Lady in My Life," and that's. And then I love "Baby Be Mine." Those are songs, so that but they had 8 songs. They were very careful as to how they put them. You go to the 90s, they were putting 16 tracks on an album, and you think about back when Thriller came out, it was like, okay, we can only put these 7 or 8 songs, and we're removing some. And then Michael kind of lost his way when he did the Dangerous album, or did Invincible album, or History album. He's just chucking songs, and so that's just been the difference between music. So if you listen to the Bobby Forever album, he only has 9 songs on that album. 9 songs. He just didn't overdo it. The first song is sort of Whitney, sort of ballads and stuff. Actually, it's 10 songs. I'm just looking at it right now. 10 songs. Tim and Bob did, as I mentioned, did 1, 2, 3, did 4 tracks. DOA did 4 tracks. The Forever album. So that's the difference. That's why I didn't like. If I had to pick between the Bobby and Make It Last Forever, the Bobby album just had a few too many tracks on there that I just skip. Where Make It Last Forever, I don't skip any of the tracks.
Oh, I need to do a correction. Actually, the last live we did we did the groups, didn't we? Our top 10 groups, and
Yes.
I didn't include this group, Low Key, which did make my top 10. I'd have to take somebody out, but the 2 Low Key albums that came out, they're just incredible albums, you know.
What label were they on?
They're on Perspective.
Oh, the Jim and Terry
Yeah,
stuff.
there's,
Okay.
there's even a bit of Stokely from Mint Condition even plays drums on some of the tracks on this album. But have you ever heard this album, the first album? Even the
No.
I mean, the thing is, the second album came out, I think it was it was around the time of the first Blackstreet album, maybe a bit. Yeah, it was a bit sooner, 93. But if you love the Blackstreet album, you'll love Low Key's second album because it's the way it's sequenced from the up tempos into the ballads. It's more or less like the Blackstreet album. It's got that kind of vibe to it. But I think you'd love both Low Key albums, Nnamdi. I really do think you'd love them both.
Okay. I didn't. I think at that time there were just so many. I mean, as much as we loved the '90s, they had so many groups and so many that went under the radar. And I think at that point in time, it became what label are they on and who are the producers, and we kind of missed because you think about what's the name of the guys? Not Joe Public, Portrait. You know, they didn't get the right kind of exposure, follow through after Here We Go, and so I don't know how many people really gave them, really checked them out and really put them in the, in the sort of top groups, because it just felt as if they were just up against so many things and during that time. But anyway, so you've got Low Key. Okay. Well, guys, we want to thank you for joining us. I know some might be watching thinking, that the orders of the tracks were a little off and stuff, and iron out the kinks.
We didn't know which tracks were going to be pitted against. We just our favourite tracks and went for it.
Yeah. So
tonight's episode, it's a bit of comfort food.
Yeah.
Don't go into it too soon. Just enjoy it.
Yeah.
So thanks for joining us.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Colin, Joseph, Glenn, everyone is this Sheila from Spain, trying to go in, Queen D, just trying to go through and see everyone that's just join.
If you get a chance, if you're on Instagram, please go and wish Jackie McGee happy birthday.
Clean Music Lover, all of you guys.
Birthday, please.
We just want to thank you guys for joining in and for making this stuff, making this stuff happen and stuff. We're back next week with our top favorite female R&B groups.
You get an episode next week as well.
Get an episode next week.
Spoiling you.
With Sheldon in and stuff, and then. And actually, so anyway, I don't want to surprise stuff, because we've just got a number of people, we've got lined up, so it's gonna be big. So we thank you guys. We won't keep you too much. I know next week it's going to be today's Randy Jackson. Which Randy Jackson? I always kind of forget. So there's the American Idol Randy Jackson, and there is the Jackson 5 Randy Jackson. It's hard to tell. And stuff. Anyway, thanks, guys. We will see you next week with Sheldon, and just think about your favorite female groups as well. Take care.
Bye.